Hello and welcome to Listen Bro. My name is Ethan and I'm joined by my brother and co-host.
I'm Joe, and look at that. You actually remembered to say who's here instead of like I did last time.
Yeah, well, can't make that mistake twice. We missed a few weeks, but we're back. Not that anybody's really listening, but maybe someday somebody will listen and they won't
Yeah.
notice that we took a couple weeks off. But
Yeah.
we're still in the American history series, and we left off last week with the end of the war, the American Revolution episode, remember? The
Yeah.
Battle of
Yep.
Yorktown, Treaty of Paris, all that. And at the
Yep.
end, I gave you a list of some like side characters that would be nice to cover.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to cover a couple of those. Not all of them, but a couple.
Okay.
So starting off, the first one, there are a couple long names in here, so just bear with me. I'm doing my best. I only speak English. Baron Friedrich Wilhelm Augustus von Steuben
Oh my.
was born in Prussia in 1730,
Okay.
and he was gay. He spent most of his first 10 years living in Russia with his father.
I feel like that would be a hard time to be gay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
Now, the Baron was a title, Baron von Steuben.
Okay. Okay, so it's not like part of his name.
Correct.
Okay.
But that's kind of what he goes by, Baron von Steuben.
Mm-hmm.
At 17, he enlisted in the Prussian army, and he was a second lieutenant when the 7 Years' War, remember French and Indian War?
Mm-hmm.
7 Years' War began, and he served throughout the war, all the while still being gay. He was discharged in 1763 as a captain when Frederick the Great drastically reduced military spending, although some say he was discharged for being gay.
Poor guy.
Yeah. And I put that in there because I read an article on history.com about this guy, and it, like, I don't know, every other sentence referenced him being gay or a man that he was friends with that maybe it was more than just a friendship. And I was like, I just want to know the guy's life story. Like, I don't need.
Literally, pretty much all that's covered with him is that he's gay.
Yeah, it was like over and over and over again. It was talking
Man.
about it. I'm like, okay, but uh, now he was discharged when they cut military spending, and that's actually something that happened even in the United States, like back in the mid 2000s, 2008.
Okay.
2012, somewhere in that range, I believe. After Obama was elected, they cut defense spending, and people were involuntarily discharged.
Mm.
So if they did that, then like it's totally likely that he was discharged under those circumstances. But some say it was because he was gay. He met a Frenchman who would later, after being discharged, who would later become France's Minister of War, like Secretary of War in the U.S. In 1775, he was looking for a government appointment to pay his debts, but he didn't have any success. So he traveled to France in 1777, and through his connections with that Minister of War, was introduced to Benjamin Franklin.
Okay.
Franklin is like, I can't promise you anything, rank or pay, but you can volunteer to join the American cause. And this guy, he's a baron, like born into a wealthy family, very privileged. He didn't like that idea.
Yeah.
So he turned that down, but he couldn't find other work because probably it was all beneath him. So he decided to just set off for America. He met with Congress, which arranged for his payment depending on the outcome of the war. Right? So if we lose the war, can't promise you anything. Before meeting up with George Washington and the Continental Army at Valley Forge in February 1778. So now he's in America, linked up with Washington and the Army, and he is still gay. I wish I was exaggerating how much it was in that article. I'm dialing it back compared.
I'm sure, man. You're making
He
you're making it clear though that it was there a lot.
It was there so much. He arrived at Valley Forge wearing the uniform of a Prussian general. And it wasn't until later on that Washington learned that he had only actually risen to the rank of captain in Prussia. But
Okay.
regardless, Washington was impressed by the guy. He had military experience and was a knowledgeable guy.
Yeah. So how'd he get the general uniform then?
You can make them.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
back then they were way different.
Yeah.
I mean, even today, you could go online and order all the stuff to put together a military uniform.
Yeah, I guess. Yep.
So not a big deal. Not something hard to do. But he was appointed as the temporary inspector general because they kind of didn't know exactly how to use him yet. So they made him inspector general, which think like auditor, that
Okay.
type of role. But he's observing the condition of the Continental Army over that winter, their skills, their equipment, their living conditions, and he was just appalled by
Mm.
it. But before he even arrived at Valley Forge, he had written a letter to George Washington and said the only object of his greatest ambition was to render your country all the services in my power and to deserve the title of citizen of America by fighting for the cause of your liberty.
Hmm.
So that was his motivation. He wanted to gain American citizenship.
Yeah.
So Steuben, who was gay, started training the Continental Army. He started by training a single company. This was his model company. And that company would then teach the other able bodied men at Valley Forge. Kind of put together like a little basic training for them.
Okay.
Because before, it's kind of just a ragtag group thrown together, volunteers, militia turned into army,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't have formalized training. So he put that together. And while he was there at Valley Forge, he worked with Alexander Hamilton and Marquis de Lafayette to
Hmm.
write a training manual, which was known as the Blue Book, which the modern day Air Force has a little blue book that is kind of a training manual of customs and courtesies and the like.
Okay.
So he kind of invented that
Yeah, that's neat.
for the military, for the American military, that is. He would go on to assist Nathanael Greene in the South, and he commanded a battalion of troops at Yorktown, which, if you remember, that was the final big battle of the war.
Yeah.
After the war, he resigned his commission and was granted American citizenship, and he lived in New York until he died in 1794, and he did die a gay man.
I was wondering when the next one was going to slip in.
Yeah, so that's Baron von Steuben, Prussian guy, born into privilege, came over to help, and like,
Was gay.
yeah, he was gay and also trained the American army.
Yeah.
So
Set up the
big,
first boot camp, basically.
yeah, pretty big contributions, and then would lead troops as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this next person we're going to talk about, this is the longest name, and I'm
I
not
thought the
French.
last one was long.
No, I'm not
Man.
French, but I'm going to do my best. Marie Joseph Paul Yves Roch Gilbert du Motier de Lafayette.
Oh, Lafayette. Okay.
Yes,
So
but that's his full
related,
name.
or is it Lafayette himself?
He is better known as the Marquis de Lafayette. And Marquis, like Baron, is a title. That's why you'll hear
Okay.
him referred to as the Marquis de Lafayette.
Okay. Okay.
So it's like saying the Duke of Lafayette, that type of thing.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, this is Lafayette. I will never say his full name again. It'll just be Lafayette or Marquis de Lafayette. But he was born in 1757 to a very wealthy, noble French family.
Yeah.
And at 2 years old, George Washington killed his father.
What?
I was going to say, you don't have any questions there? Well, not directly, okay? Not directly, rather indirectly, but at 2 years old, his father was killed fighting in the 7 Years' War, which, if you remember, George Washington started.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
which is a little bit ironic as we go through this, but yes, his father, though, died in war.
Wow. I was just flabbergasted there for a second. I had to
Yeah.
process what you said.
Yeah, but yeah, he was only 2 years old when that happened, so he grew up without a father. Because of the family he was born into, he was like, he had a lot of prestige, and it gained him military rank as a teenager, basically. And
Okay.
Lafayette was straight, he was not gay.
Okay.
Yeah. He developed a fascination with the American colonial issues, and at one point he attended a dinner with the Duke of Gloucester, who is the Duke of Gloucester is the younger brother of British King George, the one who imposed all these taxes and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So Lafayette's at a dinner with the king's younger brother, and the Duke of Gloucester just complained about the Americans rising up against the British rule and how they were discontent, getting out of line. And this really resonated with Lafayette. However, he was motivated by the audacity of the Americans, not
Okay.
the British side. He was listening to the British king's brother complain about the Americans, and he was like, "Man, I love these Americans. I want to help them." But also, very rich fellow. In 1777, he paid for a ship to take him to America, which would be expensive,
Yeah.
despite a French royal decree prohibiting French officers from serving in America. And remember, he gained rank and titles like that as a teenager, so he was a French officer.
Yeah.
He was commissioned by the Continental Congress as a major general and became a member of George Washington's staff. This is 1777. He was born in 1757.
So he's 20 years old
He was 19 when
or
he was
19 years old.
when he was commissioned as a major general in the Continental Army. Yeah, crazy. His
Wow.
first he so you kind of have to be thinking rich kid born into privilege,
Mm-hmm.
comes over, gets handed this great rank. He's working for George Washington. But he got his first taste of conflict in the Battle of Brandywine, which is just outside Philadelphia, in September of 1777. And during this battle, he was shot in one of his calves very early on,
Mm.
shot in the leg. But he maintained his composure and continued leading the troops and led a successful retreat. And because of this, Washington recommended him to Congress to command an entire division.
Hmm.
It's like he kind of proved himself.
So it's not that
immediately.
he just was wealthy and given it. He had what
He
it
was,
took to be that part.
yeah, I mean, he was given it,
Yeah.
when he first showed up, but he proved himself very early on that, like, this guy had some guts. He took a bullet in the leg and continued leading troops.
Mm-hmm.
He became very, very close with George Washington. They shared more of a father-son type of relationship than superior and subordinate.
Okay.
So Washington kind of taking the responsibility of having killed Lafayette's
Yeah.
father, doing the right thing and stepping into that role for him.
Yeah. Oh man. I wonder if
Lafayette,
Lafayette knew that George Washington was the one that started the
I doubt it.
war that his father died in.
I don't think he would have cared, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
So Lafayette spent the winter of 1777 to 1778 at Valley Forge, which, remember, that's where von Steuben showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Valley Forge. So he spent that winter with Washington there. And at the beginning of 1779, he actually returned to France for a little bit. And he was very popular with the French citizens. Like, he was given like a hero's welcome when he returned to France. But King Louis XVI attempted but failed to arrest him for disobeying that order against French officers serving in America. The king tried to have him arrested.
Mm-hmm.
But while in France, he played a crucial role in recruiting 6,000 French troops for the American cause.
Wow.
He returned to America in 1780 with the news of French reinforcements, which would have been a huge morale boost for the Americans.
Yeah.
In 1781, he returned, he's back to America in 1780, brings all these other French people back to help. In 1781, Lafayette and Baron von Steuben hunted Benedict Arnold in Virginia.
That name
See,
sounds familiar, but I can't
Benedict
pinpoint who
Arnold,
he
I
was.
mentioned him a few times in the last couple episodes. He had
Okay.
committed treason,
That's right. That's right.
and he was now leading British troops wreaking havoc in the South.
Yeah.
So, in the fall of 1781, Lafayette and his men surrounded the British at Yorktown, holding them in place until Washington arrived with his army from New York. And we talked about that last week with Washington moving 7,000 people from New York to Virginia.
Yeah.
But Lafayette was holding the British army, pinning them down in Yorktown. Washington and Lafayette initiated the siege of Yorktown that led to the British surrender, that led to the end of the war.
Okay.
So, is this the end of Lafayette? No, not even close.
Hmm.
Lafayette returned to France following the end of the American Revolution, where he continued fighting for liberty and equality. He was present for the storming of the Bastille, which is a castle in Paris that housed political prisoners, and it was viewed as just a strong symbol of the monarchy.
Mm.
So he was same kind of motivations, the American Revolution. Don't want to be under a monarch. We want rights as equals. That's what he was, taking up that in France. And
Yeah.
during that storming of the Bastille, he got his hands on a key
The key to the city,
castle.
or oh, the key to the castle.
And he sent that to George Washington. And that key, the key of the Bastille, is on display at Mount Vernon. You can see that.
Really?
That is something that was in the hands of Lafayette and George Washington, which is kind of
Wow.
cool. He helped launch the French Revolution in 1789 and drafted the Declaration of the Rights of Man, which is very similar. It's like the French version of the Declaration of Independence. Like, hey, we're declaring ourselves. We have rights
Mm-hmm.
without you as a monarch controlling us.
Yeah.
But when he wrote this, he actually had help from Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence.
Okay.
So he's very connected, in the American,
Yeah.
with American leaders there. So revolution in France turned pretty violent. Lafayette escaped France and was imprisoned by the Austrians in 1792. And the Austrians were friendly with France and considered him a dangerous radical.
Mm.
But now the dates, I found conflicting numbers. Some say 1792 he was arrested. I don't know exactly, but it was in the 1790s. And while he was imprisoned, his fortune was confiscated by the French government, and a bunch of his relatives were executed.
Ooh.
Now, at this point, George Washington was president of the United States, and he tried to help get Lafayette freed.
Yeah.
But he wasn't able to do it. But you know who was? Napoleon.
Oh, yeah?
Napoleon secured Lafayette's freedom in either 1797 or 1799. Again, saw conflicting numbers. Napoleon offered him a job, but Lafayette decided to retire from politics.
Mm.
It's like another iconic character from history that Lafayette just kind of
Cross
knew.
paths with. And
Yeah. He did actually return to America for a visit in 1824. And every city he went to, he was met with cheers and big celebrations. Like, he was an American hero.
Yeah.
He visited Thomas Jefferson while on this trip, and he made it to Mount Vernon to visit the grave of George Washington. It said he arrived in like horse-drawn carriage or whatever, and he was like, nobody come with me. I'm going to visit the grave. And he came back with tears in his eyes. And, they were very close. It's he named, I didn't put this in here, but Lafayette named his son George Washington.
Yeah.
As, George with an S on the end, the French version, Washington Lafayette. But he returned to France, where he died in 1834, and he is buried in Paris. Now, one kind of cool thing, when his coffin was placed in the ground, Lafayette's son, George Washington Lafayette, covered his coffin in dirt that was taken from Bunker Hill.
Really? So they took dirt the whole way from here over to France.
You might wonder, why in the world do they have dirt from Bunker Hill? Well,
yeah.
While Lafayette was visiting America in 1824, 1825, they were getting ready to build a monument at Bunker Hill, a monument that's still there today. It's like a, oh, what do they call this? Monolith, like the Washington Monument type thing.
Okay.
They were starting construction on that, and Marquis de Lafayette laid the cornerstone to that monument himself, just as an honor, for
Yeah.
him to put the first stone for that monument. But while doing that, though, they collected soil from there, and Lafayette had requested to be buried on both American and French soil. So that's what his son did
Mm.
with the dirt from Bunker Hill, the dirt from the hole where he placed the cornerstone of the monument, which that would be cool.
Wow. That is
Be
kind of
cool to
cool.
visit.
Yeah.
He has been called the hero of two worlds for his involvement in the American and French revolutions, and even all the way up, like he died in 1834 at like 67 years old or something like that. My math, or 70. He was quite old, especially for the time.
That's what I was just going to say. For that time frame, that would be
But
old.
even in like 1830, he was still leading revolutionary type things. He had the opportunity to basically become dictator of France, but didn't do it. Just a good guy. Like, he just a revolutionary freedom fighter. Lived his whole life doing that. I mean, from the time he was 19 until he died. So,
Yeah. And
really
traveled halfway
incredible.
across the world just to do it.
Right. Really incredible. Very close, trusted by George Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end of, the Lafayette coverage. And I didn't mention it anymore, but he was straight. He was married to a woman. He had a few kids.
Yeah.
So, anyways, one more person I want to cover that I briefly mentioned before, Nathanael Greene.
Okay.
Now, Nathanael Greene was born to a prominent Quaker family in Rhode Island in 1742. So he was born in America. He convinced his father to hire a tutor to teach him, despite this was actually against Quaker beliefs. Early education, they didn't believe in it.
Really?
Yeah, but he convinced his dad to hire a tutor. As a child, though, he developed a limp, and the cause for his limp is not known. There's some theories out there, but that's something he dealt with for the rest of his life. He always had a limp.
Yeah.
He also suffered from asthma that would frequently come up and bother him.
Hmm.
In 1770, his father died, and Nathanael Greene moved to Coventry, Rhode Island to take over the family owned business, which was an iron forge. That same year, Nathanael developed a smallpox scar on his right eye that would often become infected,
Hmm.
and it never went away. Like, that's like that
Ugh.
scar. He always had issues with his right eye. He walked with a limp. He had asthma, and he worked in an iron forge, which probably isn't the best place to work with asthma.
Yeah, that's what I was just getting ready to say. That'd be tough with asthma.
Yeah, and that was the family business, and that iron forge actually burned to the ground in August 1772, but it was rebuilt, and by the following winter, it was back working. The the family had other business ventures. They had a I don't I don't know if they had multiple ships or what, but they did have at least one ship called Fortune, was the Green family's ship. And that was confiscated by the British Navy for failing to pay taxes on cargo. You didn't remember, like, the Sugar
Mm-hmm.
Act, the tea, all those
Yeah.
things. The British confiscated their ship. So, you can kind of see the things starting to fuel his hatred for the British.
Yeah.
Following the Boston Tea Party, Nathanael Greene petitioned the Rhode Island General Assembly, it'd be like the state government, to form a militia company. And that petition would be granted. And because of his physical conditions, he was not considered at all for a command position.
Hmm.
But he enlisted as a private. And after he was enlisted, he applied for lieutenancy to, become an officer. But again, he was denied because of his limp.
Yeah.
When the Battle of Lexington and Concord started in 1775, Rhode Island militia, because they weren't all that far away, they set out for Boston. As they passed through Providence, Rhode Island, a teenager observed them, and he would say, This is a direct quote that I pulled. I viewed the company as they marched up the street and observed Nathanael Greene with his musket on his shoulder in the ranks as a private. I distinguished Mr. Greene, whom I had frequently seen, by the motion of his shoulder in the march, as one of his legs was shorter than the other.
Mm.
So some teenager seeing the militia was like, wait, you're that guy born to a wealthy family, owned a company. Why are you a private?
Yeah.
Stood out to him.
Yeah.
The governor of Rhode Island, though, as they were on their way to Boston, he actually recalled them, so they didn't take part in any of that conflict with Lexington and Concord. But the General Assembly of Rhode Island voted to raise 1,500 troops to defend the colony.
Hmm.
Now, command of these 1,500 troops was offered to two other people who both turned it down before they ended up offering command to Greene. And he accepted, which he kind of like, he had gained a reputation among people. He was a good guy, smart guy, very smart guy. Like, he was a very smart guy. So it's kind of one of those things. Nobody wanted him to be an officer because of his weird eye and his limp, and he had asthma.
Yeah.
But like, he proved himself, and then he wasn't their first pick still, but after two others denied it, he accepted. So he was commissioned as a brigadier general in May 1775, which is before George Washington was even selected, to command the Continental Army. So he's up there this is like the colonial army for Rhode Island. 2 months later, when George Washington was appointed commander-in-chief of the Continental Army, Greene was appointed a brigadier general in the Continental Army. So kind of an upgrade from the state-level army up to the Continental Army. And you remember last episode talked about the siege of Boston and how the Dorchester Heights, they hauled a bunch of cannons up there that ended up chasing the British off to where they left Boston entirely.
Yeah.
So following that, the fortification of Dorchester Heights, Greene, he was there. He's at Boston, outside Boston with Washington.
Mm-hmm.
But he started preparing flat-bottom boats in preparation for, he thought we might have to do an amphibious assault into Boston to attack the British. But there was, however, no fighting, and the British evacuated.
Yeah, that's still a crazy story.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty cool. But he was there. He was kind of in the background there, but he was there.
Okay.
When the Continental Army then moved to New York, he was given command of 5 strategic forts on Long Island, and they were expecting the British to attack the Navy. So Nathanael Greene did his best to keep the forts clean and orderly, hoping to prevent sickness among the troops. However, Nathanael Greene's ailments were afflicting him pretty bad. He was taken to Manhattan to care for what was described as a raging fever that put him out for like a week or something like that. So while he's laying in bed in Manhattan, the British arrive. And from his bed, lying there sick, he helplessly listened to the battle going on in the distance, which would be hard to know you're missing it. You're laying there just trying to survive, and you hear them like, this is what you were preparing for. And the Americans were defeated, unfortunately, there. Henry Knox, if you remember, he's the guy who actually transported the cannons from Fort Ticonderoga down to Dorchester Heights.
Okay, yeah.
Henry Knox, following this defeat, he wrote a letter to John Adams that, and this is quoted from his letter, had General Greene been fit for duty, I flatter myself matters would have worn a very different appearance at present. Basically saying if Nathanael Greene was fit and present during that battle, he thinks the outcome would have been different.
Yeah. To think that one person could have made that much of a difference.
Right. Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Nathanael Greene was present when George Washington's army retreated into New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and he took part in the battles of Trenton and Princeton, which Battle of Trenton, I did mention him during that because only a third of Washington's army got across, and he split that third into half, and Nathanael Greene commanded one of those halves.
Okay.
At the Battle of Trenton. And he helped select Valley Forge as the location for the winter encampment in 1777. Sound familiar? Same place, Lafayette spent the
Uh-huh.
winter, and Baron von Steuben. So, all
Yeah.
these guys were constantly crossing paths over and over and over again, like just these handful, a couple of guys. It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy. Like, I left out so many interactions between them
Mhm.
because there would be a ton. But the lack of resources in the camp, like people started saying something has to change here. The quartermaster, like, we're not being supplied. We're barely getting by. They're like on the verge of starving. They don't have shoes. They're freezing. Washington nominated Nathanael Greene, and he very reluctantly accepted the position of quartermaster general. So he was in charge of supplying all of the army, all of army
Wow.
supplies.
Wow.
And he performed remarkably well in this job. He reformed and completely reorganized the department, and it was an extremely difficult job because Congress didn't have money, but he was relying on Congress to provide money for the supplies to go to the army.
Okay.
But, he was like working his tail off as
Yeah.
quartermaster general. He actually attempted to resign after Congress accused him of profiting off of his position and made some accusations against him that he was doing things improperly, all that stuff. But his resignation was refused. But it was just a few months later that he wrote a scathing resignation letter to Congress, saying like just that Congress was trying to get too hands on with what he was doing. And he's like, this is not working. We're in the middle of a war. This is not the time to do this stuff.
Yeah.
So he wrote a scathing resignation letter to Congress and also wrote a letter to Washington telling him, I'm done being quartermaster general. But here's the thing, despite the accusations and stuff, Washington still had total faith in him. And here's what Washington wrote to Nathanael Greene. He said, you conducted the various and important duties of it with capacity and diligence entirely to my satisfaction, and as far as I had an opportunity of knowing, with the strictest integrity.
Hmm.
Good, very good compliment from the
Yeah.
commander in chief. By summer of 1780, three of George Washington's generals in the South had failed. Like all three of them had surrendered, like back to back to back in the South. Congress left the choice of who would take over as commander of the Southern Army to Washington, who selected Nathanael Greene.
Yeah.
So now he's like Washington's commander in chief of everything, but he's only able to be in the North. He needs somebody in the South. Nathanael Greene was that guy. So he was very critical role.
Mhm.
So he set out from up north to start heading south to meet up with his army with his second in command, who was Baron von Steuben.
Really?
Yep. So they set out south and find the Southern Army. They were in a deplorable state. They lacking supplies. They had just lost three generals who surrendered, and just they were in rough shape.
Mhm.
So they had to kind of whip them into shape, which probably great guy to have a second in command for that was Steuben. In 1781, he was facing British General Cornwallis's much larger army in South Carolina, or it might have been Georgia. Georgia, and it kind of spread, but in the South. So he used some sneaky, evasive tactics to even out the odds. He lured the British troops farther from their coastal bases in South Carolina
Uh,
and used irregular forces to keep the British extended. Keep them spread out a little bit. They're weak. They're trying to respond to these little weird forces that Greene is setting up that doesn't follow like typical protocol,
yeah.
and just luring them further and further away from their strong points. He then split his army in two, which forced the British to do the same thing,
Okay.
which led to General Daniel Morgan. He was a general under Nathanael Greene. He had a victory at Cowpens, South Carolina in February of 1781. And the next month in March, Nathanael Greene was defeated in the Battle of Guilford Courthouse in North Carolina. So you can kind of follow, he's like dragging them further north away from their strong points. from South Carolina up into North Carolina, splitting the army.
Okay.
And like Greene lost that battle, but like we've heard several times before in the American Revolution, he inflicted enough damage on the British that Cornwallis, you may recognize that name because he
Yeah.
retreated into Virginia
Mhm.
and abandoned his plan. He was supposed to take, like, he was supposed to recapture the South for the British. And
Okay.
even though he won the battle, he was beat up bad enough that he left the South and he went up into Virginia.
Wow.
And this is what led to Lafayette pinning him down in Yorktown in the lead up to the Battle of Yorktown. So that was Cornwallis.
Okay. Yeah.
So kind of crazy to see how all these things are interconnected.
Mhm.
By the end of June 1781, Greene's army had forced they like switched back into offense and they forced what British were left there back down to the coast of South Carolina. And after a battle in September, the British withdrew even further to Charleston, where Nathanael Greene kept them pinned down there for the remainder of the war. That was it.
Wow.
He like completely obliterated them in the South in just a few months.
The amount of times that it's like technically the British had a victory,
Right. Yeah.
but look at the numbers. Like,
Right. Yeah, it's like, yeah, they won, but they were, I mean,
at
the
what
general,
cost?
they won and the general ran away.
Yeah.
Like abandoned his plan to take over the Carolinas. I'm almost done. I know I'm taking forever, but I am
You're
almost
fine.
done. So he has them pinned down there in the deep South, South Carolina, Charleston, and that's what he was doing when Washington and Alexander Hamilton, Lafayette were taking part in the Battle of Yorktown. So he was just taking over the South. Now, he put together this plan. His incredible military strategy was so successful that it literally completely broke the British effort in the South. They were done.
Yeah.
Despite the accusations from Congress that I mentioned before about how he mishandled things in his role as quartermaster, he had actually given a personal guarantee of payment to contractors to keep his Southern army supplied,
Wow.
like co-signing himself, making himself liable
Yeah.
for the
Wow.
payments. Which, like, I after finding that out makes me think I highly doubt the guy was doing things improperly.
Yeah.
Like he cared about having his army supplied to the point that when the war ended, he was in debt
Yeah.
and he had to sell pretty much all of his property just to pay off those debts that he personally supplied the Southern army.
Yeah.
He became one of the most popular heroes of the war. I told you last week, like, this guy, I feel like you just don't hear about him enough, but great story. He was nicknamed Savior of the South,
Yeah.
and North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia all gave him large plots of land and money. He was the hero.
Yeah.
He was offered political appointments after the war, which he turned down and chose to settle in Savannah, Georgia, with his wife and 5 kids. So he was also straight.
Yep.
This whole running joke is not going to gain us listeners, I don't think, but whatever. So, anyways, he's in Savannah, Georgia after the war ended. Sadly, and this guy, I mentioned a couple times that he got sick. He had this issue with his eye.
Mm-hmm.
He fought the entire war constantly, asthma attacks, insane fevers that
Yeah.
would knock him out for days.
I forgot about the asthma thing. Like,
His
that would be hard
eye.
enough.
His eye would get infected.
Mm-hmm.
He was dealing with all of those things constantly throughout the war. He was not a healthy guy, but unfortunately, he died at only 43 years old in 1786. He didn't even live long enough to see the Constitution be written.
Wow.
He died right after the war, and it's believed he died from either a sunstroke or a heart attack. Which is...
So, yeah, he really wasn't healthy.
Well, and he's the kind of guy that if he would have lived to be 60, 65, like, I don't know what what he would have been because he was so popular.
Yeah, he would have had his name on a few things in history.
Like
Few more
I would
things in history.
imagine I would imagine George Washington would have still been first president, but like I don't know, maybe he would have been vice president or
Yeah.
secretary of war or something. I can't see how this guy, if he lived longer, wouldn't have been major character
Yeah. Yep.
in those later things. But he is remembered as one of George Washington's most trusted generals and one of the greatest military strategists of the American Revolution. Second
Yeah.
only to George
Wow.
Washington.
Wow.
He like the guy was just brilliant. That's the crazy like I love the story of him. He's like, "Hey, we should start a militia." And they're like, "Yeah, you're right. Let's start a militia." He's like, "I want to be an officer." I'm like, "No, you have a limp." He's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, I'll be a private then."
Yeah, I just want to be part of it.
And to go from that to leading like he was basically the George Washington of the South.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the name Greene hit like this guy is cemented in history based on names of locations you've heard
Yeah,
of
Greene County,
Greenville,
Greenville.
South Carolina,
Yeah.
Greensboro, North Carolina, Greene County, Pennsylvania, Greensburg, Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
all and so many more,
Yeah.
all named
Wow.
after this guy. So kind of same like we mentioned with Lafayette. There's lots of Fayettes, Fayetteville,
Yeah.
Fayette County, Washington, same thing. These guys have so many places named after him. But yeah, that is the story of Nathanael Greene. Those were the three people that I picked out to try to do more detail on. Hopefully you enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's
I
crazy.
did. They're just like it's hard to move on from the American Revolution without at least talking about a couple of these guys.
Yeah. Especially like when I think of the American Revolution, it's always George Washington and then Lafayette.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, that's who pops up second.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah,
definitely
and
like hearing more about him and stuff. So
he's a very popular second, but
yeah.
like I don't know, just the fact that Nathanael Greene was given so much responsibility,
Yeah.
multiple like quartermaster general, huge deal, supplying the entire army,
Yep. Wow.
and he did incredibly well at that. But
And took
then,
out how much debt on himself.
right, but like that's like an accounting job.
Yeah.
But he could also go just completely whip the British on the battlefield.
Yeah. Go from a desk job to the battlefield and do great at both.
All while his right eye is infected, he walks with a
Mhm.
limp, and he has asthma.
Yeah.
Like, it just like greatest underdog.
Yeah. Yep.
So cool.
Wow. So I'm assuming you're done there.
Yeah, I mean, I could keep ranting about
I'm sure.
how excited. I love it.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've been talking a little while about coming back around to the Unkillable Soldier.
Is this it?
This is the start of it. We're not even like this is gonna be multiple episodes too. So
Boy, this is a like all war story episode.
I know, but
I've been waiting though for this. I haven't looked into the guy because you said you were gonna do more on
it's
him.
yeah, it's gonna be a very in-depth, like couple episode long thing. It's probably gonna be at least 3 episodes because I
Man.
originally intended for 2 episodes, but I started taking my notes on it after reading the book. I went back in and started taking notes down,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I'm not even halfway through it, and I'm a lot of notes in. So
Yeah. Well, I don't feel so bad then. I was supposed to cover the American Revolution in one episode, and this was the
yeah,
third one. So I
yeah,
think I am done, though. I think I am moving on from the Revolution.
we'll see next episode.
I may come back to it in the future, but dude, I haven't even
Anyways,
talked about Benedict Arnold. He was a traitor.
yeah, I don't know much anything about him. So,
I haven't. Yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
anyways, Adrian Carton de Wiart. I might be pronouncing that wrong because once again, it is a French name that I don't speak French.
Yeah.
He was born in Belgium to a French family. He had a English grandmother though, so he has a little bit of English blood in him.
Okay.
In 1880. His mother died when he was 6 years old, and his father just kind of wanted to get away from Europe after that.
Okay.
So his father moved him him and his father moved down to Cairo, Egypt, to practice international law because his father was a great lawyer.
Wow. That's like an exotic place to
Yeah.
go. It's just like not what you'd think of.
Yep. Not long after moving, though, his dad gifted him with a donkey, which started his love for the horses and stuff. And
Man.
that's going to play a huge part in his career.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Lafayette,
Mm-hmm.
after we moved back to France, he sent George Washington dogs.
Okay.
And George Washington bred those dogs with some of his dogs, which created it's like the American Bloodhound. Lafayette and Washington created the American Bloodhound.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyways,
That's crazy. Maybe that's why I liked bloodhounds so much.
Maybe. It's like freedom in a dog.
I know. I just like the bugles that they do.
Yeah.
Anyways, he then was given, after taking care of and proving that he's able to take care of his donkey well, he was then given a polo pony, which...
I'm sorry. Hold on. It's the American Foxhound, not Bloodhound.
Okay.
What is a polo pony?
Yeah, so like one of those, like the sport polo where you're riding on a horseback and have a little wooden hammer thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that, but he was given a pony because he's still a kid.
Yeah. I thought you were saying like a breed.
No, he loved his polo pony though. He loved playing polo, and that was like his greatest pastime. But while he was living in Egypt, a lot of children in Egypt at that time did not make it. Like, it was just hard for kids to survive all the diseases and everything. He was constantly getting sick. So 1891, he was sent to England to oratory school in Edgbaston, which is near Birmingham, England.
Okay.
After a few years in England, he became captain of the cricket and football, or soccer, teams.
Mm-hmm.
And he also was winning tennis tournaments and billiards tournaments. He was just all around like an athlete.
And those are billiards?
Yeah.
And tennis?
Yeah.
Those are nowhere even close to the same type of thing.
Nope.
Okay.
But
okay. So you said he went to, was it language school in England? Is that what you said it was?
Oratory school. It's just the name of a school.
Okay. So he probably at this point already is speaking multiple languages, I assume.
Yes.
Dang.
Yep. His actually, before he left from Egypt, he was told to go spend a summer with his cousins that were in France, so they could really make sure his French accent was perfect for him to go to England, because it's better to have a French accent for people to think you're from France than people to think you're from Belgium or Egypt or something. So
wow.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting life being moved all around how many different countries at this young of an age still.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes on to talk about in the book about how he feels that sports were an important part of childhood. But his father really disagreed with that and thought that education was more important. So in 1897, his father took him out of that school and sent him to Oxford, because less sports get you on law school.
Yeah.
So Adrian failed his first law preliminary. His father still hoped, though, for him to follow in his footsteps, essentially.
Yeah.
But not long after he failed that preliminary, he was kind of like on, not like a suspension necessarily. He wasn't in trouble, but he was left studying and wasn't really doing much in the progression of his schooling at the time.
Yeah.
So around that time, though, the Boer Wars in South Africa started. And that's when Adrian knew, and this is a quote from the book, "War was in my blood." He said he was determined to fight and didn't care for who or what. If England didn't want him, he'd offer himself to the Boers.
How old was he at this point?
I believe he was 19 at this point, which is too young to actually register in the English Army. You had to be 21. But
dude, that is so much like Lafayette. Like, hearing of a war, I'm going.
Yeah. That's, while you were talking about that stuff, I was like, I can't wait to get into mine, because it's like right down the same path.
Yeah.
But he then talks about how the ideal soldier is a man that fights for his own country because it's fighting, not because of politics or ideologies, because those are better left to the historians.
Mm-hmm.
He really did not like politicians, and that will be a recurring theme throughout his life. But his only problem was, how would he get into being able to enlist in the battle? Because his father would not approve of it, first of all. His family in Belgium was actually pro-Boer in the war. Like, they wanted the Boers to win, not England. So they wouldn't have approved, so he couldn't even like have them try to override his father in a way. And with him being a foreigner and underage, England wouldn't approve. So there was only one way. He had to pass himself as a British and enlist under a fake name and age. And, quote, it was all too easy. In fact, it was so easy that he then listed one of his friends the day after, because his friend wouldn't be able to pass the medical exam. So he went in his friend's place to pass the medical exam. He said that England was just so eager for fresh blood. And his friend was short-sighted, and he went and passed the medical exam for him, so that way they could both go down there. And he was so excited to use his new name in battle. Any guesses as to what his name might be? So his real name is Adrian Carton de Wiart.
And he uses an English name?
He just picked a name, basically.
Carton.
Literally his middle name.
Huh.
Adrian Carton de Wiart. He chose Carton as his name. It's like, you couldn't pick anything more different to make it a little bit easier to hide, maybe. But so when he enlisted, he ended up being sent to the Paget's horse training, which is like a cavalry training, kind of like a boot camp. And he quickly became disappointed in it, because it wasn't as like ferocious, and it was more about being like becoming a warrior or a soldier at that time. He said that his officers were telling him that soldiers aren't born, they're made, and he did not like that, because he said it was in his blood. But, and this kind of cracked me up a little bit, eventually, after his training was finished, he was sent on a troop ship on his way down to South Africa, where his ferocious desires, as he called them, were finally fulfilled overnight. He was surrounded by sick people, and it was his job to clean up after them. But that was his first taste of like what it's going to be like in his life as being a soldier. Though. So like he was excited to be on a boat with a bunch of sick people, and he wasn't sick, so he had to take care of them. I don't know how he could be excited about that.
Yeah.
But after they landed in Cape Town, they were then given the horses that they were going to be, because he was in the infantry and he already had a lot of horsebacking experience with playing polo. So he was kind of given charge in the group that is supposed to take care of the horses. And there's a story, I didn't write it down, but there's a story in there that he got so fed up with them one time, he was supposed to move them from one stable area to another, and none of them were cooperating. So he just opened the gate and let them run, and snuck back under the cover of night to his camp. And he said, to this day, until I'm writing this, I don't think anybody knows that was me that let the horses go.
Man.
But before he was ever able to experience any form of battle, he got sick. He had a really bad fever, so they sent him to town, to the hospital. But whenever he was not sick anymore and he was well enough, he joined a local corps in the same town as the hospital was in.
Okay.
And he got in a shootout with some of the Boers. There and then, in that shootout, he received his first of many injuries. He was shot in the stomach and the groin.
Yeah, I remember that before. Yeah.
And when they took him back to that same hospital, and whenever he was asked about the altercation and if there was a large group of the Boers in the area that they needed to be worried about, because he was just on patrol essentially with a couple guys when this happened.
Okay.
And his reply was no, but the few were very good shots.
Because you said he joined a local corps,
Yeah,
but
so
he was already part of the English army, right?
yeah,
So
he
he's like
basically just
into
joined. He just got out of the hospital and was like, yeah, I'm just gonna join this because the English army was taking too long to get him back. So
yeah.
joined a little ragtag group of guys that are patrolling the town, basically.
Okay, and it's this ragtag group of guys that he's with when he sees his first combat?
Yes. Yep.
Jeez.
Yeah. So after being shot twice, mind you, in his first time ever in combat,
Right. Yeah.
he finds himself in the same hospital again because it's in the same town. They figure out his identity.
His real identity
His
or
real identity.
Okay.
His dad was notified, and he was sent back to be, the word that was in the book was invalidated from the army.
Invalidated?
No, it's INVALID.
Invalided.
Invalided, okay. I couldn't figure out the pronunciation of that one great.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Basically, he was being removed from the army because he should never have been in the army.
Okay.
He was...
Okay, sorry to cut you off again.
No, you're fine.
But him being shot the first time he's in combat is another Lafayette similarity.
Yeah. Yep. It is.
Lafayette continued leading troops despite having been shot. Like, dude, the similarities. Now, I'm kind of glad we did these the same episode because.
Oh yeah. Well, you just wait till I get to the end of what I'm going to be covering today. It gets so much crazier.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
But you got to think, this guy's 19, almost 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He is terrified as to what his dad is going to say or do.
Right.
But whenever he returns to Cairo, his dad completely ignores that he ever went behind his back, joined the military, got sent the whole way down to South Africa when he's supposed to be at Oxford. His dad completely ignores that, sends him right back to Oxford.
Okay.
His dad was very, what's the word?
Patient?
Like
forgiving?
Persistent. Okay. That he needed to be a lawyer, go for a law degree.
Yeah, okay.
But whenever he was able to re-enlist, he was able to actually become an English soldier again. They let him enlist whenever he was old enough because he technically already was in the English army. Right. And they know he's going to fight for them, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They let him re-enlist whenever he was old enough.
Okay.
And there he had to convince his father of that a good bit. But whenever his father was convinced, his dad sent him a bunch of money. And he was able to pretty much buy his way into the Colonel Corps.
Okay.
And he loved it. He was dealing with those luxuries and everything until daddy's money ran out. Then he was like, you know what? This really isn't for me. So he went back to back into the infantry again.
Yeah.
And this time he joined the Imperial Light Horse, which had such strict riding tests, only 5% of people were accepted.
Wow.
And he made it in first try.
Yeah, I mean, he'd been riding for quite a while, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Huh.
He said the one thing that a lot of people failed on was they couldn't mount their horse without putting a foot in the stirrups. Whereas he was able to just kind of throw himself up over the horse.
Yeah. Wow. That would be hard.
Yeah. I'm picturing full-sized horse.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to do that.
No.
But not long after he got in there, he was actually promoted to corporal.
Okay.
He had that rank for 24 hours. Not even. Before he was demoted for threatening to hit his sergeant.
Okay.
It's like he got promoted, not even a day later, demoted.
Yeah.
But they were preparing to attack one day, and I think I covered this story in the last one as well. The Boers were laying down heavy fire. But with an attempt to show his courage, he asked the colonel if he could go and cut the barbed wire separating the two armies.
Yeah.
The colonel called him a fool.
Yeah.
The book has a lot stronger language as to what the colonel called him, but
Mm-hmm.
essentially a fool, told him to
Yeah.
get back to the other men.
Okay.
But later on, he was sent to India after that war ended. There really wasn't much more excitement in the Boer Wars. But his military career sent him to India, and there wasn't much conflict there either, so he spent a lot of his time playing polo and a thing called pig sticking, which is a sport that the English military pretty much invented over there. The infantrymen would take their horses out, and to keep up with training and close combat training, they would hunt wild boars, hunt wild pigs.
Yeah.
And when they got up close to them with a spear, they would stab them. And that was their food then. So they were hunting for food, but also called it training at the same time.
Yeah. Wow.
But around the time that England declared war on Germany, he was sent to Somaliland to fight the Mad Mullah. I don't know if you've heard of them before.
No, I don't think so.
Basically, I don't really want to compare them to the Americans fighting for the American Revolution, but they were an anti-colony. Like, they wanted their own space. Basically, they wanted out from under the rule of England and India and stuff.
Yeah.
But there, he joined the Camel Corps, and it's exactly what it sounds like.
That's right. I remember hearing that before.
When it came time to go to battle against the dervishes, which is the Mad Mullah people, basically. Mad Mullah is one person that is in charge of this whole group of dervishes.
Okay.
They managed to secure a blockhouse, which they later found out was really not a good idea because it only had one way in and one way out. And they basically... He was given command to go in and attack this. This was his first time commanding, by the way. So kind of similar to Lafayette. This is where it gets kind of crazy in his story, too.
Yeah.
His first time commanding, he goes in, secures this building, thinks it's awesome that he was able to secure this, and it's a nice place they can hide behind and stuff. But what he didn't realize was that there was only one way in and one way out, and it was a very dangerous situation for everybody else.
Yeah.
In that building, the first dervish that came in and shot at him barely missed him. And when I say barely, he says that it put a hole through his shirt sleeve.
Wow.
And the guy was only a yard away, and the blast from the gun almost knocked him over.
Wow.
Like, they were that close combat in this building. Like, that is just insane. A lot of his men were being wounded badly. The dervishes were using very soft and large balls as their ammo. But he said the only thing that saved his troops from being completely annihilated and it just being injuries, essentially, was they were using a very low amount of powder. So thankfully it didn't have as much speed behind it, but it's still a large soft piece of metal that's just going to expand like crazy the second it hits something.
Right.
So it causes a lot of damage, just not really deep damage. And next thing he knew, he was shot in the eye.
Oh, yeah.
But he said he was too wound up to stop fighting, which I thought was just hilarious.
And now you're talking Nathanael Greene stuff.
Yep. The next hit was a large splinter of wood from a post in that house or building that splintered off and went into his elbow.
Okay.
And the very next shot after that splinter split his ear open. But field doctor was right beside him, came over and stitched his ear right up, looked at his eye, said, "That's too much for me to handle right now. Are you able to keep fighting?" And he jumped up and started fighting again before the field doctor even finished.
Yeah. So he got hit with one of those like oversized rounds with light powder in the eye.
Yep.
Okay. That makes more sense as to why he survived it.
I was so confused with that whenever I was first studying him, but then when I got the
Yeah.
book, he explains it a little bit better.
Yeah.
But then his ear was split open,
Mm-hmm.
and after the battle, or actually, sorry, skipped a section there, patched up and still wound up,
Mm-hmm.
he tried for the door again when a ricocheted bullet hit the same exact eye.
Oh,
That one kind of knocked him out of the battle.
what? What are the odds?
I know, right? 2 bullets hitting your eye. The second
Man.
one, so the first one, I believe, grazed his eye. Like it technically didn't go in, but kind of just
Okay.
grazed it. But that's
Yeah.
still bad. I mean, you're still
Right.
looking at
Yeah.
losing an eye. The second one, direct hit. I mean, it was a ricocheted bullet, but direct hit.
Yeah.
But the Somalis, who he was fighting with, had to retreat due to the heavy casualties. But
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I found was hilarious, and I, I can only picture how it went, but basically they're leaving the battlefield, they're giving up on that fight at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and they're yelling back to the dervishes, if you want to retreat or if you want to surrender, now's the chance.
Yeah.
Like they weren't the ones retreating. Like they very obviously lost that battle, but they're there yelling
Yeah.
at the enemy, hey, if you want to give up, you can do it now.
What a bold guy.
I know. But he goes on to say that was such an exhilarating and fun experience.
Yeah.
Then he was sent to the camp hospital, which
Mm-hmm.
refused to work on his eye, which sent him to the doctor in Egypt, actually, ironically.
Yeah.
A very good eye surgeon, which also refused to fix his eye, said it was too far gone. But while he was
Yeah.
there, his father came and visited him, kind of second guessed him as, sure you really want to continue this war stuff? I can write a letter and we can get you out of it.
Yeah.
Because his dad was very well regarded.
Mm-hmm.
But they sent him back to England, and on January 3rd, 1915, that date is important, they took his eye out.
Okay.
1 year later, from that date exactly, I'm kind of skipping a bit, I'll come
Mm-hmm.
back to it, but the reason that date is important is because 1 year later exactly, his father's wealth kind of poof, gone. He started getting into some wrong people and wrong things, and he lost everything.
Ooh.
So his allowance that he was getting quite often from his dad was gone. So
Yeah.
he says that he's not typically superstitious, but he will never leave his house on July 3rd if he can help it. Or January 3rd if he can help it.
January. Yeah. Dang.
But while they were removing his eye, they found a piece of metal from that second bullet was embedded behind his eyeball.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why it was too far gone, is
Yeah.
it was actually something behind it.
Right.
So he was sent to recover at number 17 Park Lane Hospital in England.
Okay.
For around 3 weeks. He then had to appear in front of a medical board for reconsideration to if he could fight or not, which is very similar to Nathanael Greene.
Yeah. Yeah.
They deemed him
unfit.
Yep.
Unfit to be an officer.
Yep. But
yeah.
when he first appeared in front of them, they were shocked that he wanted to continue to fight, and let alone go to France to the front line to fight Germany in World War I.
Yeah. Well, and sorry, kind of going back a bit, I guess, because he got shot twice in the same eye. He got shot in the ear. That was patched up.
And a splintered off of a piece of wood.
That didn't result in any, like major.
No. He said like it left a scar, but
wasn't sure if it was the kind of thing where like, oh, it got infected and.
Nope. That was probably the least of his injuries of all injuries he dealt with. That splinter was probably the least of them. But
because of what I know of the guy from what you told me, I'm just looking for, what's the thing that does it in for his arm?
Yeah. But yeah, they were so shocked that he wanted to go to France and continue fighting.
Yeah.
But they refused his request, as they didn't want the Germans to think they were reduced down to sending one-eyed officers. So he appealed it, and whenever he was able to go in front of the board again for that meeting, he showed up with a very, and I quote, uncomfortable, and startling looking glass eye.
Okay.
But he was deemed fit for general service. Still not to be an officer, though.
Okay.
But after the meeting, he said he called a taxi. He popped out his glass eye, chucked it out the window, and pulled on a black eye patch and never wore a glass eye again.
Man.
But that part there reminded me so much of Nathanael Greene. Whenever you were talking about him, I jotted that down in my notes here. I was like, I gotta remember to circle back to Nathanael Greene with not being fit.
Right.
To be an officer, especially, because that's exactly what happened with him. And he had to go into regular service. But that is where I'm going to end this one today.
Okay.
I originally intended to get to the end of World War One, but as you can tell, he is just starting World War One.
Right. Yeah. There's probably a lot that happens. I mean, from what your brief overview was a while back.
Yeah.
I know the guy's crazy, but can't imagine getting the full story.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to wrap this up, our longest episode ever.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a good one, though.
Yeah, I think it's a good one.
One last thing. Technically, I don't think the guy's gay, but he never does marry.
I meant to ask. You have to wonder, though.
Yep.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed this. This is like a war stories episode, I guess.
And expect more from the Unkillable Soldier story. I'll be continuing that one the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm moving past the American Revolution finally. And I think my next episode is going to be a detailed look at America's founding documents. So,
okay.
That it very much shifting gears out of war talk into document talk, which sounds thrilling, but it'll be fun. I enjoy it. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow, rate, like, subscribe, wherever you're listening to this on. Do whatever that platform allows you to do. That would help us out. And catch us on Instagram at ListenBroPod. And we'll catch you in the next episode.